There are some stories on Reddit that seem too terrifying to be true. But what if some of them are? What if behind the usernames and anonymous posts are real people? People who encountered something beyond reason, something that still haunts them to this day. Before we dive into these disturbing tales, let me take you to the story of someone who knows that darkness is real, someone whose life was marked by shadows long before Reddit ever existed. I grew up in a place forgotten by time. The people in our town didn't talk much about dreams or hope or anything bright. Life was simple but hard. Rusted rooftops, cracked walls, and broken promises lined the streets like ghosts that never left. My name is Elric. I wasn't special. I was just another boy from the slums, living with my grandmother, who raised me after my parents vanished one rainy night when I was 6. No one ever told me what really happened. Some said they ran away. Others whispered about something darker, something they dare not say out loud. But I always remembered that night, the thunder, the wind howling like a beast, and the strange knocking that came from the back of her hut. 3 soft knocks like a warning. Then silence. And then they were gone. I never forgot. Growing up, I didn't have much. Just a pair of worn shoes, a second-hand school bag, and my best friend Liam, my only escape from the grayness around us. Liam was full of jokes, the kind of person who could make you laugh even when the rain leaked through the roof. We'd spend afternoons in the cemetery behind our school, telling ghost stories and daring each other to walk between the graves at night. It was harmless fun, or so we thought. But the older I got, the more I began to notice things. It started small. Shadows that moved when nothing else did. Whispers in the wind that said my name when no one was around. My reflection in the mirror holding its gaze a second too long, like it was watching me. I told myself it was just my imagination, maybe some leftover fear from that night my parents disappeared. But deep down I knew better. One evening, Liam and I were sitting under the broken street lamp near the abandoned chapel. He was teasing me about a girl from school when suddenly, the light above us flickered violently, then shattered. We laughed at first, but the laughter stopped when we saw a figure standing just a few meters away. Tall, still, dressed in black, with no visible face. Just standing there. We blinked, and it was gone. That was the first time Liam got scared. Truly scared. He brushed it off, but his smile didn't reach his eyes anymore. I felt it too. Something had shifted. After that, things escalated. I began waking up at exactly 3:13 a.m. every night, heart racing, soaked in sweat. I'd hear footsteps outside our small house, slow, deliberate, heavy. I'd peek through the wooden slats of the window, but there would be nothing there. Just the eerie quiet of the night and the sense that I was being watched. One night, I found a paper talisman tucked under my pillow. Old, brittle, covered in strange symbols I couldn't understand. My Lola denied putting it there. She told me to burn it and pray. But when I threw it into the fire, the flames turned blue and cold. The worst part? That was just the beginning. Liam started acting different too. He stopped coming over. Wouldn't answer my messages. At school, he looked pale, like he hadn't slept in weeks. One afternoon, I confronted him in the hallway. He pulled me aside and whispered something that made my blood run cold. "You brought it back, Elric." When I asked him what he meant, he just shook his head and walked away. That night, I heard the knocking again, 3 soft taps. Not at the back door this time, but directly on my bedroom wall. The wall that faces nothing but thick, empty forest. I tried to tell myself it was all in my head, but when I looked down at my floor, I saw muddy footprints. Child-sized, leading from the window to the foot of my bed. Things at school worsened. Teachers ignored me, even when I raised my hand. My classmates avoided eye contact. Liam stopped showing up entirely. And on the last day I saw him, he left something in my locker, a torn page from a diary, covered in trembling handwriting. Don't trust the mirrors. Don't listen to the voices. It wants you to remember. But remember what? That question gnawed at me. Then, one evening, I went into my Lola's old room, the one she kept locked since I was a kid. She had passed a few weeks before, peacefully in her sleep, or so they said. The key had been hidden in her Bible. I opened the door slowly. Dust choked the air. Symbols, faces without eyes, dark forests, bleeding moons. In the center of the room, nailed to the floor, was a small wooden box. I opened it. Inside was a photo of my parents, holding me as a baby, with something behind them. A shape, almost invisible, but it was there, watching. The same shape I had seen under that street lamp. Next to the photo was a bundle of dried herbs, a pendant, and a letter. It wasn't addressed to me. It was addressed to you. Yes, you, the one hearing this. The letter said, "If you found this, it's already near. It feeds on fear, but it thrives on stories. Every tale told, every truth remembered, brings it closer. It came for us. It will come for you." And that's when I heard it again. 3 knocks, right behind me. I turned around, but the room was empty. Or so I thought. This is just the beginning of what I discovered. 50 true, disturbing horror stories, posted by people who may have been touched by the same darkness or something even worse. What you're about to hear might sound like fiction, but I assure you, there's more truth in these tales than most would ever dare admit. But before we dive into story number 1, ask yourself, have you ever felt like someone was watching you when you were completely alone? Because maybe, just maybe, you never were. Stay with me. The darkness is only beginning. The silence in my Lola's room was thick, heavy, like the air had been holding its breath for decades. After I found the letter, I couldn't sleep. I couldn't even move. My eyes kept returning to the photo, my parents holding me, smiling, but behind them, that shape, that awful figure that blended with the shadows, yet stood out once you saw it. It was there. It had always been there. The letter's final warning echoed in my head. It came for us. It will come for you. For days after, I tried to pretend nothing had changed. But it had. The knocking never stopped. It came every night, always 3 soft taps. I tried to ignore it, to act brave. But I knew something had been awakened, and it wasn't going to go back to sleep. I started digging into my family's past. Lola never talked much about the old days, but I remembered her saying once, in a whisper while she was half asleep, "There's a price for protecting a bloodline." I didn't understand it then. I didn't want to understand it now. But I had no choice. I went to the oldest part of town, to a house that people avoided, the home of Mang Elias, a retired albulario. Some said he was crazy. Others said he'd fought spirits with his bare hands. But all I knew was that he was the last person my Lola ever visited before she started locking that room. When I arrived, Mang Elias was already outside, sitting on a wooden stool like he'd been expecting me. "You're the boy," he said without looking up. "Elric." I froze. "Where do you know my name?" He didn't answer. Instead, he motioned me to follow him inside. His home was like a museum of forgotten things. Herbs hung from the ceiling. When he unwrapped it, I saw a small, glowing mutia, a smooth, milky white stone with a faint blue light inside. It pulsed slowly like a heartbeat. "This belonged to your mother," he said. "It's not just a stone. It's alive. It chose her, and now it chooses you." I took it carefully, the warmth spreading into my palm. For a moment, I felt safe. Then, like a distant voice, I heard something in my head. "You are not alone. Mang Eliat wachet me kolosi." The mutia connects you to the spirit world. It can protect you, but only if you accept what you are. "What am I?" I whispered. "A guardian," he said, "or a gate." I didn't understand what that meant, but I knew I couldn't run from this anymore. That night, I returned home and hid the mutia under my shirt. I barely stepped inside when I saw Liam waiting for me. Pale, thin, like he hadn't eaten or slept in days. "I try to stay away," he said, voice shaking. "But it's getting stronger. I see it in my dreams now. The figure. The eyes. He paused. And something else. A woman in black. She keeps whispering one name. Yours. I told him everything. About my Lola's room. The photo. The letter. Mon Eliot. The mutia. For once, Liam didn't laugh or roll his eyes. He just listened. I think you're in danger, he said. But not just from that thing. People are acting strange around you. Have you noticed? He was right. At school, teachers avoided me completely. Some students looked at me with fear. Others whispered behind my back. One day, someone left a dead crow in my locker. Another day, the word traitor was scratched onto my desk. It was like I'd become cursed by just existing. Then something worse happened. One morning, I found a trail of dried blood outside our house. It led into the woods, deep, far past where anyone normally went. I followed it, heart pounding. The trees grew thicker. The light dimmed. Then I saw it. A hut, hidden ancient, covered in vines. Inside, I found symbols similar to the ones in my Lola's room, but far more twisted. Hanging from a ceiling were bones tied with black string. At the center was a bowl filled with dark water and a reflection that wasn't mine. Instead, I saw a woman. Her skin was pale as death. Her mouth stretched too wide. Her eyes were solid black, and she was smiling. I stumbled back and ran. When I reached Mang Elias again, I told him what I saw. His face turned grim. She's the one who cursed your bloodline, he said. An Aswang of the old kind. Not the kind that just feasts on flesh, but one that eats memories, twists destinies. He explained that long ago, my great-grandfather had betrayed her, tricked her, sealed her in a pact to protect the town. She was banished, but not destroyed. The curse was passed down. Each generation, one chosen, one haunted. Now it was me. And now, Mang Elias said, she wants revenge. Through you. He gave me something else, a Kabibi necklace. Wear this always. It will mask your aura. But I don't want this, I said. I'm not a fighter. I'm not like my ancestors. He nodded. Neither were they, until they had to be. That night, I started training. Not with swords or fists, but with rituals. Prayers. Sigils drawn in salt. Learning which herbs could protect, which symbols could seal. It was overwhelming, but deep down, I knew I had to learn. If I didn't, I wouldn't survive. And neither would Liam, or anyone else. Still, something inside me resisted. I didn't want to believe that my life would always be surrounded by death and spirits. I wanted to be normal, to go to school, to laugh, to live. But normal was gone now. One night, as I practiced drawing a protection circle in the sand behind our house, I saw a flicker of movement. Then I heard it. 3 soft knocks. But this time they weren't on wood. They were inside my head. And a voice followed. You opened the door. Now walk through it. I turned, expecting to see darkness. But instead I saw a child. A small boy, standing barefoot, eyes wide. He looked exactly like me. Before I could say anything, he whispered, "They're coming," then vanished into thin air. And that's where I'll leave you, for now. Because what happens next? That's when things get truly terrifying. The next chapter will reveal secrets hidden in blood, enemies disguised as friends, and the ancient power that's been waiting for Elric and maybe even for you. Stay with me. This is just the beginning of the shadows. Since the night the boy who looked like me whispered, "They're coming," I haven't been able to sleep without seeing him in the corners of my room, behind mirrors, or outside windows. Always watching, always silent. It wasn't just fear anymore, it was confusion, and a kind of pain that settled deep in my chest, like something sacred had been cracked open. I thought I knew who I was. A simple boy. Poor, yes. Forgotten, maybe. But I still believed I had a family that loved me. That whatever I was going through now, at least it didn't come from them. I was wrong. It started with an old photo I found inside a locked drawer in my Lola's dresser. I wasn't looking for trouble, just trying to understand more about our past. The picture was faded, almost crumbling at the edges. My Lola was there, young and smiling. Beside her was a man I didn't recognize. At first, I thought maybe he was just a friend or a cousin. But when I turned the photo over, I saw 3 words written in shaky handwriting. My real son, Elias. I dropped the photo. Elias? Mon Eliot? I rushed to him that night, breathless, desperate. He was lighting incense when I arrived. He didn't even look surprised to see me. So you found it, he said. You're my uncle? I asked. No, Elric. I'm your father. I couldn't speak, couldn't move. My ears started ringing. He walked slowly to the corner of the room and took out a rusted box. Inside were more letters and another photo, this time of a baby. Me, cradled in his arms. Your Lola made me promise to stay away, he said, voice low and trembling. She said it was the only way to protect you from a curse. From what I'd already seen, I wanted to fight it, but I was weak. I let her take you. I let her raise you as if I never existed. I backed away. I didn't want to believe him. I wanted to scream at him, curse him, ask him why he didn't come back. Why he left me alone in that cold, quiet house where love always felt like a secret no one wanted to share. But I didn't scream. I just turned and walked out. That night, I sat in my room, staring at the mutia around my neck, shaking with anger and sadness. It glowed faintly, almost like it could feel what I felt. I wanted to throw it away, to run, to pretend none of this was real. But I couldn't, because when I closed my eyes, I saw them, creatures with long arms, crawling through the trees, whispering my name. And her, that woman in black, grinning with hunger. The next day, Liam texted me in a panic. Meet me. Now. Something's wrong. I found him behind the old chapel, shaking. He looked like he'd aged overnight. There was a girl, he said, a new student. She sat beside me in class. She kept staring, didn't blink. When I asked her name, she said yours. Elric, just your name. I felt my stomach twist. She followed me after school, Liam continued. I ran. But when I looked back, she wasn't walking. She was floating. I knew then it had started. They were testing us, playing with our fear, drawing closer. That night, I went back to Mang Elias. This time I stayed. We sat by the fire, and he finally told me everything. The curse started with your great-grandfather, he said. He fell in love with an Aswang, a beautiful woman who wandered into our village during a blood moon. She didn't tell him what she was. He didn't care. They had a child, your Lola. I stared at him. My heart beat louder with every word. She was half human, half shadow. Your great-grandfather tried to purify her through rituals, but she fought it. She made a pact with the old spirits to bury her darkness. In return, the family was marked forever. Every few generations, one child would carry the weight. You were born under a rare eclipse. You were the next vessel. I wanted to vomit. My own blood was never fully human. I didn't want you to suffer, he said. But I was a coward, and now they've awakened. He gave me a small bottle of oil and told me to mark my doors and windows. That night, I did everything he said. But still, at 3:33 a.m., I woke up gasping. There was whispering, a woman's voice, then claws scraping wood, and laughter. My window fogged up on the inside. On the glass, a word appeared slowly, like written by a finger. Son. I ran to my mirror and nearly screamed. My reflection was gone. In its place was a boy me, but twisted. Dark eyes, lips stitched shut. He raised a finger to his mouth and whispered, "Shoo," and then he was gone. The next day at school, they announced that the new student, Liam's classmate, had disappeared. No trace, no footprints, just an empty desk. That was the last time anyone saw her. I began to feel the weight, not just of fear, but of destiny. I didn't ask for this life. I didn't ask to fight monsters or carry the sins of a bloodline. I just wanted a father, a friend, a family that didn't lie. But all I had was a cursed inheritance and the ghosts of secrets nobody wanted to admit. One evening, while training in silence, Mang Elias gave me a mirror. "This is no ordinary glass," he said. "It shows the true soul." I looked into it and saw a storm, a swirling mix of light and shadow, locked in battle. "You are both the lock and the key," he said. "If the darkness wins, you won't just die. You'll open a door that should never be opened." That night, I asked him, "Why me? Why not someone else?" He looked at me sadly. "Because you're the only one left." And suddenly, I felt more alone than ever. I walked out into the fields that night, away from everything, and sat under the stars. I cried, not just out of fear, but out of grief. For the life I lost, the love I never knew, the truth that shattered the little peace I had. I didn't hear her coming. She appeared beside me, without sound, the woman in black. She was beautiful, because a small part of me believed her. Now, I stand between two worlds. One built on truth, pain, and sacrifice. The other on promises whispered in the dark. And I don't know which one will swallow me first. Since that night under the stars, since the woman in black whispered her lies, I haven't been the same. Something inside me shifted. Like the darkness she carried left a crack in my soul. No matter how hard I trained, no matter how much I tried to focus, the words she left behind echoed in my mind. "They'll all betray you." Even Mang Elias noticed it. He said nothing, but I could feel his eyes watching me longer now. Like he was no longer just training me, but waiting to see if I'd break. The days passed faster. The air in the town felt different. Heavy. People started acting strange. A mother drowned her own baby in the river and said a voice told her it wasn't really her child. A group of boys went missing after playing near the old cemetery. Dogs howled all night, then disappeared without a trace. It was like the earth itself was preparing for something dark. One morning, I woke up to find a mutia around my neck cracked slightly. Just a thin line, but it glowed red instead of blue. Mang Elias examined it and grew pale. "They're close," he said, "closer than ever." He finally told me the last part of the prophecy, the one he never wanted me to hear. When the blood moon rises and the vessel is full, the gate will open, unless the heart holding it chooses light. It didn't make sense at first, but slowly I understood. It wasn't just about fighting the Aswangs. It was about me, my own heart. If I gave in, if I believed the lies, they wouldn't have to kill me. I'd open the gate myself, and I didn't trust myself anymore. That's when I started avoiding Liam. Not because I didn't need him, but because I was scared of what I might become, of what I might do if the Whispers finally won. But he didn't give up on me. He showed up one night at Mang Elias' place, bruised and dirty. "They tried to take me," he said, breathing hard. "Two of them. Their eyes were all black. They were wearing teacher uniforms. I knew something was off. I pulled him inside quickly. He looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time. 'You've changed, Elric,' he said, 'but I'm still here. We fight this together.' I wanted to believe him. I really did. But part of me still felt broken. We trained every night, with Mang Elias guiding us. I learned to read the old scripts, Bebean spells etched on bark and stone. I learned how to trap shadows with salt and ash. How to use fire not just for warmth, but as a weapon. Liam wasn't as fast, but he was stronger. His loyalty unshaken. And yet, despite everything, we could feel the end drawing closer. The blood moon was approaching. 3 nights away. Every sunset felt darker than the one before. Shadows moved on their own. Trees whispered names and voices that didn't belong. People avoided eye contact. Some even whispered Anik Ingdalim when I passed by, as if they knew what I carried inside. One night, while alone, I stared at the mirror again. This time my reflection stared back, but didn't move when I did. He looked sad, almost tired, and then he spoke. "You're not strong enough, Elric. You never were. I shattered the glass with my fist. Blood dripped down my fingers, mixing with the red glow of the cracked mutia. The pain grounded me. It reminded me I was still here, still human, but barely. The next morning, Mang Elias took me and Liam to the edge of the mountain, where an old Dewind lived, one of the last spirit guardians loyal to the old ways. He was small, wrinkled, and blind, but when he touched the mutia, he shivered. "The stone cries," he said. "Its soul is breaking." He placed a shell Kabibi in my hand. "This belonged to your Lola. She used it to seal her own darkness once. It may help you if your will is pure." That was the problem. I didn't know anymore if it was. That night, the village square caught fire. No one saw who started it, but witnesses said they saw shadows dancing in the flames, laughing, feeding. Children screamed of voices whispering to them in their dreams, promising them magic, power, immortality, if they just opened their windows at night. And then Mang Elias collapsed. We found him convulsing on the floor, his skin turning pale, veins blackening. He had been marked, cursed, by something older than the Aswangs. "Poison words," he whispered before passing out. They'd begun their ritual. He wouldn't wake up. I sat beside his bed, tears falling, my hands clenched. I had nothing left. My father was broken. My Lola was gone. My past was a lie. My future was a war. And the only thing I had left was Liam. He sat beside me, quiet, just holding my shoulder. That one gesture kept me from falling apart. Later that night, I stood outside, staring at the moon. It was already bleeding, deep red. Not fully risen, but glowing brighter than ever. They were coming, and I wasn't ready. Suddenly, the ground trembled. The sky darkened, even though it was only dusk. And from the forest, we heard it, drums. Deep, echoing beats, like a heart calling out for blood. Then screams, real ones. The enemy had begun. I turned to Liam, heart pounding. "This is it," I said. "If we fail tonight, they win." He nodded. "Then we don't fail." We gathered our tools, blessed blades, salt bombs, sigils carved in wood. I wore both the cracked mutia and the Kabibi tied around my wrist. One broken, one whole, just like me. As we moved through the village, I saw the fear in people's faces. Some had already packed to leave. Others were too frozen to move. But one thing was clear. They knew it wasn't just folklore anymore. As we reached the edge of the forest, the wind stopped. Everything became still, too still. Then came the sound of feet. Hundreds, moving as one. Shadows appeared between the trees. Dozens of Aswangs, their skin like ash, their mouths too wide, their eyes glowing like coals. Behind them, towering over all, was her, the woman in black. She hadn't aged. If anything, she looked even more beautiful, more deadly. She raised her hand, and the shadows stopped. "You're out of time," she said, voice like silken thunder. "Choose your side, vessel." My heart raced. The mutia burned. The Kabibi pulsed. Liam drew his blade, stepping forward. He already has. But inside me, the doubt remained. Would I be strong enough? Would my own darkness betray me? I didn't know, but I had no more time to wonder. Because they were here. Both were burning now, one with pain, the other with something I couldn't explain. Not warmth, exactly, but a strange pull like it was trying to guide me. Liam stood beside me, his breathing heavy but steady. His blade glowed faintly, etched with the sigils Mang Elias had carved. I could feel his courage, but I could also feel his fear. And mine. But before the first clash could happen, something changed. The woman raised her hand, and all her creatures stopped mid-step. She looked past me, her smile twisted. "He finally arrives," she whispered. I turned around, not bright like the Aswangs, but not human either, like fire hidden behind ice. He walked up slowly, hands open. "Enoch," he said softly, "stop this. Come with me. This isn't your war. Everything in me wanted to run to him, to hold him, to believe this nightmare was finally ending. But the Mutya, even cracked, burned hot against my chest, warning me. No, I said, stepping back. You're not him. His face didn't change, but his eyes narrowed. I raised you, he said coldly, taught you how to survive, and now you choose them? A dying albulario and a boy with no power. Liam raised his blade again. The woman in black laughed quietly. The same markings I had seen in Mang Elias's old books. Markings used by banished guardians, those who once protected the world, but were consumed by greed or rage and turned into something else. Traitors. No, Iga Spot. You're not just a servant. You were one of them. He smiled again. I was the first, Danik. The first to see the truth. The first to be betrayed. Your Lolas seal me away. You carry her blood, but also mine. That's why they want you. Why she wants you. He pointed at the woman. She can't open the gate without a vessel who carries both light and shadow. That's you. It hit me like ice in my chest. The Mutya was from my Lola. The Kabibi, hers too. But my father, he was the other side. The dark half. I was the key, the door. The war wasn't about winning or losing. It was about controlling me. Behind me, Liam groaned, trying to stand. The woman began walking forward slowly, as if savoring every second. You were never meant to fight, she said sweetly. Only to choose. Let the world burn or rule beside us. My hand shook. My breath came short. My heart pounded like a drum. I was losing myself. And then I felt something. A whisper from the Kabibi. Not words, just a feeling. Gentle, familiar. Hope. I took a deep breath and slammed the Kabibi against the ground. It cracked open and light shot out. Not white, but blue, soft and strong. It spread in a circle, pushing back the nearest shadows. The woman hissed. My father stepped back, and for a moment I felt free. Liam scrambled to my side, gripping his blade again. What was that? He asked. I didn't answer. I didn't fully know. But I knew this. My Lola had left more than protection. She left memory, truth, and suddenly flashes fill my mind. Images of her younger, standing over my father, tears in her eyes, sealing him into a cave with her blood. Of a ritual, of a promise made to an ancient spirit that someday one of her blood would rise to restore balance. I wasn't just the gate. I was the answer, but only if I chose right. The light faded. The shadows returned, angrier. The woman snarled. You're not ready. You never will be. She raised her hands, and the ground split open behind her. From the depths, a giant form began to rise. A Daleketnin, one of the royal horrors. Ancient, deadly, with a crown of thorns and a face that flickered like flame and bone. Even the other Aswangs stepped back in fear. The final piece had arrived. Liam gripped my shoulder. We need to run, but I knew there was no running. Not anymore. If we left, the village would fall. The world would crack. And I still didn't know if I was strong enough. I looked at my father one last time. His expression was blank now, like a soldier waiting for orders. He wasn't coming back. The man I loved was gone, and all that remained was the bloodline I had to carry forward. The Daleketnin stepped forward, its voice like 100 screams layered into one. Choose, child of light and shadow, or be torn apart by both. I looked at the Mutya, cracked and trembling, at the broken Kabibi in my hand, at Liam, at the sky, where the blood moon now sat full and low. And I realized something. This was never about being ready. It was about choosing, even when broken, even when afraid. The battle hadn't started yet, but the true war, the one inside me, had. And I had no more time to hesitate. But before I could speak, the ground shook again. And from the east, where the sea met the cliffs, we heard a horn blow. Low, echoing. Then fire in the sky. A burning arrow soared overhead, and struck the Daleketnin in the chest. It screamed in rage. The woman spun around, and from the shadows came warriors, not Aswangs, but spirit guardians. Real ones, clad in gold, with glowing tattoos and fire in their eyes. One of them shouted in a voice that made the trees tremble, "The child is not alone." A final twist, a last breath of hope, and maybe, just maybe, the tide was turning. The wind howled like a wounded beast as the spirit guardians descended from the cliffs, blades and fire swirling in their wake. Their armor shimmered, each step they took shaking the earth, as if nature itself had chosen a side. The Aswangs snarled and charged, clashing with the guardians in a storm of shadow and flame. In the center of it all, I stood frozen. The cracked Mutia pulsed against my chest, and the broken Kabibi in my hand glowed faintly, like a dying star. Beside me, Liam was ready, his blade now burning with blue fire, gifted by the guardian who had placed a hand on his chest moments ago, whispering a blessing in an ancient tongue. My father, no, the creature who once wore his face, stood still, his face a mask of calm amidst the chaos. The woman in black moved to his side, her fingers weaving through the air, controlling the rising shadows. And behind them, the Daleketnin, now fully awakened, towered above all, its eyes glowing with fire, its mouth stretched in a grin that had no joy, only hunger. "You don't belong to them," the woman said, pointing at me, voice rising over the battle. "You belong to us. You carry both light and shadow. You are the door and the key." "No," I said, though my voice trembled. "I am not your weapon." She tilted her head, smile fading. "Then you will die with them." The Daleketnin raised a hand, and with a deep guttural sound, the sky split. Lightning forked across the heavens. The air turned heavy with ash. And then silence. For a moment, it was as if the world held its breath. Then everything exploded into motion. The Daleketnin lunged. Liam grabbed my arm and pulled me aside just in time. The ground where I had stood cracked open, revealing molten earth beneath. "Go!" he yelled, slashing at a shadow beast that came too close. But I couldn't go. I had to face it. Them. The woman advanced, her eyes now pitch black. My father flanked her, blades of bone forming in his hands. I faced them both. Why me? Why was I the one born with this curse? The woman sneered. "Because your bloodline was never meant to stay clean. Your Lola defied the old balance. She took the gift of light and twisted it with mercy. But you were the correction. You were always meant to bring the balance back." "You mean destruction?" I snapped. She laughed coldly. "Call it what you want." The Mutia in my chest burned again. It was trying to show me something. Not just power, but memory. Suddenly, I was inside a vision. I saw my Lola as a young woman, standing before an ancient tree, offering the Kabibi to a shimmering spirit. I saw her bargain. Give my family a chance to live, even at the risk of one day being hunted. She had traded security for choice. I came back to the present with tears in my eyes. My family never cursed me. They gave me a choice, even if it came wrapped in pain. I stood tall and faced my father. "You chose power over love. That's why she sealed you away." He stiffened, and for a moment his eyes flickered. I saw the man who used to carry me on his shoulders. Then he screamed and charged. The clash was instant. Liam blocked the woman. I met my father head-on. His strikes were powerful, heavy, bone against bone, blade against light. But I moved with something more than instinct now. I moved with will. With every strike, I remembered a lesson. My Lola's hands guiding mine over a fire. Mang Elias whispering prayers. Liam's stubborn loyalty, even in fear. My father's blade caught my shoulder, burned through my flesh. I screamed, but I didn't fall. The Mutia exploded with light. A force pushed him back. He skidded, shocked. I stepped forward, blood running down my arm. "You're not him anymore, and I won't be your key." Behind him, the Dalekitnan roared again, raising its massive arms to bring down the final blow. It had ignored the Guardians. It only wanted me. Now, a voice screamed, Mang Elias, still alive, standing high on a stone, arms lifted in ritual. A pillar of blue light erupted from the earth. The Kabibi, still glowing in my hand, lifted on its own. The spirits began chanting in the old tongue. And then I saw it. The choice. Give in, and the world dies with me. Or let go. I closed my eyes and whispered, I'm ready. The Kabibi shattered, and the Mutia fused into my chest. I felt something tear open inside me. Not pain, but release. Power surged, but it wasn't mine. It was theirs. My ancestors. The Guardians. My Lolas. The ground lifted beneath my feet. Light erupted from me. Not bright and blinding, but fierce and clear. The Dalekitnan shrieked, blinded. The woman in black screamed as shadows peeled from her body like smoke burned in a holy fire. My father fell to his knees. I approached him. He looked up, one last time, as his eyes lost their glow. I only wanted to protect you, he whispered. I know, I said, but you forgot how. He reached up, fingers shaking, and placed a small, cold stone in my hand. Then his body turned to ash. The battle roared around us, but the tide had shifted. The spirit guardians struck harder. The Aswangs fled, screaming as the sky turned blue again. The Dalekitnan, weakened, took one final breath and vanished in flame. The woman in black was gone. All that remained was silence, smoke, and dawn. I dropped to my knees. Liam ran to me, catching me before I collapsed. We won, he said, almost in disbelief. But I shook my head slowly. No, I whispered. We survived. And then a sound, not one of death, but of something new. From the ashes, the stone my father gave me began to glow, and from it a single sprout, a green leaf, alive, growing. I didn't know what it meant yet, but I knew one thing. This was not the end. This was only the beginning. The smoke had cleared, and the sun slowly broke through the heavy clouds above the mountains. It was the kind of light that didn't just shine, it warmed. It healed. For the first time in what felt like forever, the wind carried no whispers, no curses, no shadows trailing behind. I stood at the edge of the battlefield, staring at the sprout in my hand. It was small, delicate, yet it pulsed with something deep and ancient. The green leaf that grew from the stone my father left behind was more than just a sign of life. It was a message, a beginning, or maybe a second chance. Behind me, the Guardians knelt before the sunrise, their weapons planted in the soil as if they, too, knew it was over. Their chants faded into silence, like a final prayer. And then one by one, they vanished into the wind, their task fulfilled. Liam sat on a broken piece of stone, wrapping his arm in a torn strip of cloth. He had taken a bad hit during the fight, but he was alive. Tired, bloodied, but alive. You all right? I asked, sitting beside him. He gave me a crooked smile. You say that after I almost got turned into dinner by a shadow dog? We both laughed. A short laugh. Tired. Hollow. But real. There is peace now. But the peace came with a price. The valley that once held the whispers of our ancestors was now scarred. Trees had burned. Stones had cracked. The once sacred soil now bore the signs of battle. And yet, the earth did not mourn. It felt like it breathed again, slowly, like waking from a long sleep. As the sun rose higher, we returned to the village. The people were waiting, faces filled with worry, grief, and fear. And then hope. They ran to us. Mang Elias was among them, limping but smiling wide, his eyes misty. You did it, he whispered, placing a shaking hand on my shoulder. You did what we could not. No, I said gently. We all did. All of you gave something. Sacrifice something. He nodded, but I could feel it. He was proud. That night, the whole village gathered near the old fire pit. For the first time in many generations, the fire was lit not for warding off spirits, but for honoring them. They sang old songs, told stories of the past, let the silence stretch. No, I finally said, I think they're part of me now, not as enemies, but as reminders. Of what? I looked at the plant, of how close we are to becoming monsters when we forget who we love. He nodded, his expression thoughtful. In the following weeks, life slowly returned to rhythm. The fields were cleaned, animals returned, and even the birds sang again. People repaired homes, reopened the small school, and Mang Elias started teaching the old rituals again, not in fear, but in respect. One day, I was invited to stand at the center of the town circle. The elders had voted. They wanted me to be the new Tagapangalaga, the guardian of the old ways, the protector of the balance. I almost refused. I felt I was too young, too broken. But Mang Elias looked me in the eyes and said, "You've already carried the weight. Now carry the wisdom." So I accepted, not because I was the strongest, but because I had seen the darkness and chose not to stay in it. That night, I held the last piece of the kabaibi in my hand. It was choosing to stay, to heal, to protect, and to hope. As I turned to walk home, I saw the wind catch the leaves of the tree behind me. They shimmered for a second, like tiny flames, then stilled. I smiled. Maybe one day, darkness would rise again. But when it did, we'd be ready. Because light doesn't always come from the sky. Sometimes it grows from the wounds we survive. And that's where my story begins again.